I'm an artist who works with, well, mainly traditional materials, and a side effect of using traditional materials is that my work is incredibly unfashionable, but it's very durable. The reason why it's durable is because we know how to take care of the ingredients that make up the work. And it's because we gathered so much knowledge about materials that have been around for a long time. But what I want to talk about today is not traditional materials. I want to talk about the side effect of using traditional materials. And one side effect is that I deal with material transformation. So a very simple example, if I was going to paint all of you guys, I'm going to replace all your individual complexities with paint. And if I was going to be really ambitious, and I'm going to make a marble sculpture of all of you, I'm going to replace all your complexities with stone. What I also want to talk about today is how this material transformation could be related to digestion, how it could mean that we break down material, that we absorb it, and that we digest it, but that we also reduce it, distill it, and finally excrete it. So I'm going to talk about shit. What I want to say about the replacing of material is that you shouldn't mix up abstraction with replacement. So what I mean, imagine I'm holding up a piece of paper that is painted black, and I said to you, this is the Roman night sky. I don't want you to think, wow, this is a cheeky visual shorthand. I want you to think about the materials that I used to replace darkness. So this could be soot, it could be charcoal, it could be black ink. It is bound to be black anyway. Okay, let's talk shit. So here we go. On the left, we have, this is turtle dung, by the way. On the left, we have a very beautiful turd, dropped by a very healthy turtle. It's beautifully curved, very elegant, and it must have been a very confident and happy turtle. Whereas on the other side, not so happy. It's probably, it's most likely to, I imagine, a sick turtle. I imagine maybe an old turtle, a turtle that ate something wrong, and you can just about imagine a turtle dragging itself along the beach, leaving that turd. So to me, this poo communicates. Of course, it communicates to me not as a veterinary doctor. I don't know anything about stool. I only know about stool because I'm my own creator of poo. So I relate to this as, you know, someone who too. So the interesting thing is that this thing can communicate with me even though, and now you go, whoa, 30 million years old. This is coprolite, so it's fossilized poo. So the organic waste material, or the has been replaced by mineral deposits through time. So, so there is one example of material replacement and or material transformation. So this is going to be a slightly unfortunate comparison, but I'm going to compare you guys to shit. And I turned you into sculptures. You were turned into sculptures through my hands, just as shit was turned into coprolite through time. So, so this is explaining what I'm talking about, material replacement, in terms of an object or a sculpture. Now I want to try to make a slightly bigger leap. I want to try and make a slightly bigger leap towards painting. And so again, let's imagine, the Palazzo Ruspoli could do with some frescoes here on the wall. It's pretty bare down here. So let's replaster the whole thing, and I'm going to paint a fresco of all of you guys. And the amazing thing is that I can represent you with the most economical means, only with pigment. This whole thing about fresco is that you can, that it sets into the wet plaster. So I've replaced all your complexities with the most economical means. Something really extraordinary happened in Renaissance painting, where, it was an incredible time where the artists went absolutely crazy about the pigments that were available. They, dug up stuff, they made it themselves, they oxidized, they reduced, they whatever. And what was so amazing about the pigments was their optical properties. So with optical properties, I mean things like opacity, translucency, semi-opacity, semi-translucency, iridescence or opalescence. And they used all this to represent other material or replace or represent other material. And they did that by layering thin layers of this kind of pigment. So when light would hit through the surface or through the painting, it would go through different layers of pigment in order to give the impression of glass or of softness of fur or the radiance of skin. So the whole reason I'm telling you this is because I want you to understand that surface or painting does not mean compression. It doesn't only mean that we're looking at an image or that we're looking at a narrative, but that we're also looking at material replacement, and that as a creator, I am engaged in that material replacement. So now I want to fast forward into now. We all have screens. There must be hundreds of phones there. There are laptops. I'm surrounded by 4 screens, 3 screens. And the amazing thing about these screens is that the information that is contained in them is completely compressed. So it's very different from a painting. It's compressed to the state of immateriality. It's just backlit. It's light. So I want to sort of step back a little or crawl back a little from now. I want to, in the late 50s, the French philosopher Roland Barthes had a fit about the state of French toys for children. And he got really irritated how the toys of the 50s were so annoyingly literal. So, things were, they had plastic, they were plastic cars, plastic hair dryers, plastic Vespers, whatever, soldiers. And he thought that this is the most annoying way of entertaining children, because children will not be able to invent their own worlds. They will just be given the stuff that they can that they will consume. They will not invent their own worlds. So he was longing for things that, wooden bricks or very simple wooden toys where children could engage with and they could build their own worlds. They didn't have to accept what was given to them. They wouldn't have to accept a motorcycle, or they could build their own thing. And things don't have to mean anything. They don't have to mean what we adults think things need to mean. They can invent their own new worlds. So they become creators rather than consumers. Another thing that he complained about was the material was so gross and well, also literal. It hadn't got the warmth or the naturalness of wood. It was clinical, it was plastic, and as soon as something broke, it was of no use. So if you have a Vespa and the tire falls off, it's broken. Whereas with a wooden toy, it's soft. When you handle it, it dwindles. It doesn't break. It is always a nice thing to handle. And the child can be in touch with nature. It can be in touch with the material of wood. It's reminded of trees, of tables, of the wooden floor it's playing on. So there's a lot of poetry involved in experiencing these materials. As a painter, of course, I've also been affected by this. I've also become a consumer of paint rather than a creator of paint. All the paints that we use today are homogenized in a way that the pigment is ground to a very homogeneous granule size, and so is the physical body of the binder. It's very it's homogeneous. So, like I said, I've also become a user rather than a creator. This is one of my paintings, and it's lasagna. And so the painting is of lasagna, so it's woven sheets of pasta, and I cut 2010 into it. So, and gravity sort of gives it a slightly melancholic droop. And when I engaged with material, I was obviously, maybe just like the child was making connections between the wood, the tree, and the table. I was making my own connections. I was making connections between pasta dough, paint, and the passing of time and drapery, maybe. Now, we're actually not looking at a painting, we're looking at a projection of a painting. So everything is compressed. And we accept these surfaces as complete. We accept them not only as complete, but we accept them as helpful. We think they're helpful. We can zoom into them. We can see details. And I personally, the way I cope with life, and that's what why I also spend a lot of time in my studio, is that I believe that things, that my life experiences and the experiences I have in life I have to digest, and I have to have material evidence of it somehow. So I want to engage with the transformation of things, and I think this is part of, this kind of digestion helps me because I can excrete things, I can get rid of things, I can, and in this world where we are constantly surrounded and interrupted by, being surrounded by all these screens, we're constantly interrupted by messages, and we have to respond and participate. We're asked to respond and participate all the time. So we are, many of us suffer from depression, anxiety disorders. So, this digital age in late capitalism has been pretty bad for the human psyche. So this is just, maybe you should all chuck your iPads and get into wood carving. I'm not sure, but this is how I cope with things. Durability is only works in the light of disappearance and deterioration. So museums, I don't know, lots of art only survived because it's hidden from us. We, things in Paleolithic caves, sculptures, cave paintings, bronze sculptures in old shipwrecks, or and museums physical museums try to emulate, try to imitate this safety of hiddenness in caves or in the depth of oceans. But museums also, they fend off cultural atrocities, they try to be neutral towards political agendas, they're trying to do what a cave does. The archives that we're dealing with now are ever expanding, and they are crazy. There's another archive. There's an archive of digital data, of immaterial stuff that is completely resistant to physical transformation. And it's ever expanding. And despite it seeming so immaterial, it actually consumes vast amount of the world's energy through the data centers that store it. The concept of durability only works in the light of disappearance and deterioration. And so I think that physical transformation and digestion is a good way of getting rid of some things by reducing them and also by forgetting them. Hence, ideas for getting worth forgetting. Thanks.